Hi everyone. So very rarely, do I feel like I'm not quite okay. Okay. Hi everybody. Let's see if I can whatever. Do I look like we've just made it through a full moon? I do. 2 or 3 times in my YouTube career, maybe 4 or 5 times, I've done a full moon video after the full moon, and I always feel a little badly about it, but I'll trust the timing. It has been full moony insofar as it's been busy enough that I have not been able to get to it. But it's not been terrible, and in some ways with this particular full moon, I'm finding, based on all the sort of evidence I'm getting related to the full moon, if I can use that word. It's not like I'm poring over thousands of charts and talking to thousands of people, so it's not, it's not enough evidence to make anything scientifically proven. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily to be looking back at this full moon slightly, and it's only been a couple of hours since the full moon happened. And also some of the aspects that the full moon is encoding, aspects that the full moon isn't necessarily making on its own, although it is, are coming up over the next few days. So it's worth having this conversation anyway. I find that with a full moon, about 48 hours before and 24 hours after, so we're still in that energy, things come up related to a full moon. Now, it's a full moon and it's not an eclipse. So full moons happen every 28 days. Our lives are not rocked every 28 days, even if this full moon is conjuncting, sorry, there's something on my screen, even if this full moon is conjuncting Uranus. The full moon in and of itself is in Taurus, conjunct Uranus, and it trines Pluto in Capricorn. And the aspects that it is encoding, let me get all this out of the way. The aspects that it is encoding are the Sun trining Neptune, Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Taurus, therefore full moon in Taurus, the Sun and the Moon are opposite each other. The Sun is trining Neptune in Pisces. Mars from Leo is trining the North Node in Aries, and Mercury in Sagittarius is trining Chiron in Aries and opposing Jupiter in Gemini. 3 trines encoded into this particular full moon, and 1 opposition. And wouldn't you know it, it is that opposition that is, out of everything going on, the most significant, in a sense, as far as this full moon is concerned, because both Mercury and Jupiter in mutual reception are dispositors of this chart. So let's cover that as well. The full moon in Taurus, Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus is in Capricorn, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. So the ruler of the chart is Venus in Capricorn. And Venus in Capricorn on November the 14th, yesterday, squared the North Node. We'll cover that energy, although it's not technically part of the full moon reading, but that's fine. The ruler of the chart is Venus in Capricorn. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is in Pisces. Pisces has 2 rulers. One is Neptune, which is in Pisces. So Neptune is one of the dispositors in the chart, in Pisces. And the other ruler, Jupiter, is in Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter. So Mercury and Jupiter are in each other's houses, are in houses ruled by each other, so they're in mutual reception. So the 3 dispositors of the chart are Neptune in Pisces, Mercury in Sag, and Jupiter in Gemini. And Mercury and Jupiter are in opposition to each other, and the Sun is trining Neptune. We're going to continue to develop this. Let's talk about how the full moon, I find, has been showing up for people. With a full moon, there are a couple of things that tend to occur. On the positive side, offers can come through, completions can occur, visibility can occur. It's not huge visibility. It's visibility for about 72 hours. It's like visibility over social media, or visibility, related to matters or tools or whatever it is that sits in the Taurus part of the chart. So on the positive side, there can be culminations and even sometimes desired departures. I resigned today, something like that. I got an offer today. I was waiting for this and I got that, and that kind of stuff. On the challenging side, it's like a bubble that has been sort of growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, or if you're blowing a bubble, it bursts and goes splat. Or, as I like to prefer to actually use this analogy of a pot of milk that is coming to a boil and it overflows. There's an emotional overflow. There's an intuitive overflow. It's a lunar visibility. It can take the form of course, emotional boundary setting. It can take the form of some sort of a tantrum, anger, tears. With full moon, sometimes people who are susceptible to things like nosebleeds or bleeding into, sort of the fluidic tidal system kind of gets, for lack of a better word, inflamed. It gets triggered. I'm trying not to use words that are going to put this video, the video will get approved. I'm not saying anything that is remotely problematic, but certain words I think trigger YouTube AI to kind of really review the contents of the video. So I'm just trying to be mindful of what I use. So as we get to the full moon, cathartic events, conversations can occur. As I said, they can be emotional about either we or somebody else. But if it's not some sort of a tantrumy thing, it can also be expression, conversations of things that have been suppressed that are starting to come to the surface. Sorry for that long pause. I'm trying to find the right words. I think you know what I mean. It's always helpful with full moons to pay attention to, if you are, and I say this often, if you're on the receiving end of a tantrum, or somebody's having a meltdown towards you, or someone's expressing something, or feels like a pot of milk is coming to a boil, or it feels like there's an intuitive flare-up, it's always helpful to pay attention to it, or even if it's in yourself. Because what is coming to the surface, or what is being expressed, is some sort of truth. And I'll tell you why I put it in parentheses, in quotation marks, that is coming to its surface. Now, the truth in a very rational way. The sun, wherever he goes, illuminates the part of the chart that he goes into. And the sun is unfailingly concrete and rational in the best way possible. A direct connection to source. Clarity. The moon, as we as people engage with the world, in certain astrological traditions, it's the moon that stands for us and not the sun. Because as we engage with the universe, with the 3D reality, our reactions are more lunar than solar, or often can be. We're trying to make sense of things. Things are happening. We are on the giving and the receiving end of often all sorts of vibes and microaggressions, and they don't even have to be minority issues related. They're just, I mean, sometimes just the act of setting up a reading, because I don't automate it, can lead you have to be really careful to not make assumptions about people. You can have a perfectly nice reading and go back and forth or deal with some administrative stuff. It's just interesting what it is like to interact with the world. And in an ideal sense, in an ideal world, we would constantly be connected to that part of us that would be wise and solar and rational and conscious. But with everything we're dealing with, there's also this kind of oceanic, watery, lunar energy that is intuitive and emotional and responding to things. And with a full moon, that truth, in quotation marks, that is not solar, that is not completely conscious, that is not completely thought through, that may not be completely irrational, and that is coming from a place of feeling, intuition, may bubble up and erupt to the surface. And so it may not necessarily be the truth, but it could be the truth of a person with regard to how they're really feeling about something. Something can occur, for example, to offend somebody else, to confuse somebody else. And it may be that what it is that occurred has a personally rational explanation, but to the person who it offended or confused, it sets off something. And sometimes these things are suppressed, and as we get to a full moon, and so some sort of truth that they've been carrying that is truthful for them, that has not been expressed, gets expressed. So on the positive side, full moon offers culminations. On the more challenging side, the eruption and expression of swirly feeling, intuitive. The moon in the tarot, it has this kind of, the lobster is out, the wolves are howling, the hair standing up on the back of their backs, and everything is not entirely visible or clear. It's beautiful reflective light, but it's the nighttime and our senses are heightened, and we're in a kind of a mystical fairy tale, Red Riding Hood in the woods. Hansel and Gretel, will we be able to find our way back? Is someone going to steal the breadcrumbs? Kind of vibe. Okay. Now, what I am observing, and so far what I've observed is on the positive side with this full moon. Well, the full moon is also, while we're talking about aspects and transits related to this full moon, the full moon is also conjunct Algol, which is a fixed star of terrifying reputation and complicated reputation. The head of Medusa. We'll come to that as well. What I'm finding is that people have received information or news or word on something or some sort of an offer. But the intriguing thing is that while it doesn't entirely make sense to me in the Taurus part of the chart, what I'm observing seems to make sense in the Capricorn part of the chart where Pluto is, and the full moon trines Pluto. And Pluto is trying to finish up a transformation, as you know, the Capricorn part of the chart that it started since 2008. And on November the 19th, in 4 days' time, Pluto moves from Capricorn to Aquarius. Finally, and it's final because he's not going to come back to Capricorn in our lifetimes. Pluto takes a long time to go over the chart, and for all of us, unless something happens where people can live forever, Pluto's not coming back to Capricorn in our lifetimes. And Mars opposed Pluto on November the 3rd from Cancer to Capricorn. And Venus just squared the North Node, Venus in Capricorn, and the North Node in Aries. One of the energies that is in the air is something coming up that feels like it could present a kind of conflict to the direction we're really trying to get to by the end of the first week of June, by mid to end April to the end of the first week of June of next year, which is symbolized by the North Node eclipses in Aries. So if we're trying to head to some sort of desired fantasy direction, something that is in our heart, something we feel we're called to do, something we've been trying to get to some extent, or trying to integrate or trying to incorporate since March, April, May, June, July, August of 2023, and I felt we've been thwarted to, as we head towards the end of the first week of June, right now in November, October, November, especially November, but October, November of 2024, something could come up that, especially as we headed towards November the 3rd, presented itself as a bit of an obstacle to that direction. But sometimes things that are seemingly obstacles may be needed to be considered and incorporated because they help us to get to where we want. An example could be you are trying to get to some place by the mid to end of April or into early June, but you need to take some sort of a temp job or avail of something or do something which, while on the surface, is in conflict with what you're trying to do or where you're trying to go, but in the meantime can bring in resources and can actually help you get from where you are to where you want to go. Middle to end April is still 5 odd months away, and the end of the first week of June is easily more than 6-7 months away. So you could decide, I'm going to temp, I'm going to help so-and-so, I'm going to take this offer, I'm going to do this, shall I consider doing this? On the one hand, energetically it feels like, this is not exactly what I'm trying to, this is kind of, but it may be something that, as we've said, helps revitalize the status quo. It could be something that actually helps stabilize the Scorpio part of the chart right now, because we're still in the month of Scorpio. The new moon in Scorpio was on November the 1st, and the Scorpio part of the chart is wanting to be brought into alignment with where we want to go, all the way till November the 30th when we have the new moon in Sag. And all these aspects kind of work together. You might say, well, Venus is in Capricorn, the North Node is in Aries, and Mars was in Cancer when he opposed Pluto in Capricorn. What could that possibly have to do with the Scorpio part of the chart? These planets don't work in isolation, or they might be working in isolation, but ultimately it's a coherent story. Things happen in this part of the chart that can be utilized in that part of the chart, etc. So there is this element a little bit of something opposing coming in that you have to evaluate. Is this going to help? Is this not going to help? Is this going to take me out? Is this going to keep me where I am? Or is this going to actually help me get to where it is that I want to get to? And it could be that the former applies in some cases and the latter applies in some cases. And it's really interesting that on November the 3rd, we had this opposition that Pluto on his way out was opposed by Mars. Not a small thing. And then on November the 15th, with this full moon, I'm delighted that on his way out, he has a full moon that is trining Pluto, supporting Pluto. It's kind of, it's like a goodbye party at a company that is wonderful, and there's a cake, and everyone is giving you a warm hug, Pluto, and saying thank you for whatever it is that you've done in the Capricorn part of the chart to help transform it to the best of your ability. Now it's up to me, and I've got to figure out where I take it from here. I know what I need to do. I know what I need to build on. I can't wait for you to get into Aquarius to start to transform that for me. Some of what has come up for people over the last 48 hours and over the next 24 hours might actually be a culmination that you can directly correlate to the Pluto part of the chart as Pluto leaves. It may feel like it is opposite to, in some ways. It may feel like it is totally in sync with where you're trying to go. It may feel like it is opposite to where you're trying to, but you may recognize it as being helpful in certain cases if it is an offer, if it is an answer, if it is a culmination. And if it's something that you are still in mixed minds about, it could propel you to start to take action in a direction where you're not in mixed minds about. Let's say you are trying to stabilize the Scorpio part of the chart and you are trying to figure out, do I release something or do I revitalize something that is stagnant? And I need XYZ in order to do it. And something shows up that offers you X, Y, and Z, and you're like, oh, but that's going to take me in the opposite direction. In which case it might propel you to say, I think I might reject that, but then I have to really work towards the direction that I really need to work towards. It might present a contrast that propels you in the direction that you want to move towards. So culminations are very possible. The other thing that is very possible, and this comes from the Sagittarius part of the chart, and this is a really important energy right now. Venus went through Sagittarius from about October 13th to 17th to November the 11th, and she created the opportunity for a bridge. She created the opportunity for harmony. Again, during that time, she said, what in the Sagittarius part needs to be brought into alignment with where you want to go? And here are some opportunities. And Mercury has now come in, of course, to Sagittarius, and is going to go retrograde on November the 26th. And Mercury's already started to make aspects that he's going to make 3 times. He has squared Saturn. He is going to be trining Chiron and opposing the Sun. And then after he goes retrograde, he's going to make these transits 3 more times. And this is the other prevailing energy around this full moon, which is things are coming up that you know are going to take a second to work their way through. So if things are in the realm of something emotional or conversation being broached or something coming up, you may have an awareness that it's not quite as simple. With Mars trining the North Node, and Mars is going to go retrograde on December the 6th, and then trying the North Node 2 more times, and Mercury opposing Jupiter and trining Chiron, and then going retrograde on November the 26th, and doing the same 2 things another 2 more times, there's this awareness, especially as Mercury is getting ready to trine Chiron and oppose Jupiter, that you might be on the brink of something communication related, or at the start of something that's not going to be done until, that's going to be processed during December. But it's lovely that you have a trine with Chiron, because it gives you the opportunity to heal some part of yourself that has been wounded and act from an empowered place. Now, acting from an empowered place means that the conversations could have a positive outcome, because you're able to build or rebuild a relationship or achieve something positive by virtue of building some kind of harmony. Or it could have a positive outcome because you are unable to build harmony, but you walk out of a situation with greater clarity and with a sense of healed self-purpose where you're clear about what you will and will not tolerate in your life. So it's a win-win with a trine to Chiron. It's just a question of you may be ready to have certain conversations where you are just that much more empowered. And the conversations could go this way or that way. But either way, it's a win-win, because with that trine to Chiron, you are kind of in a take it or leave it mode. That does not have to be aggressive. It just is. You're just clear about what you're open to and clear about what you're not open to. You're ready to make some decisions. And remember that the North Node eclipse in Aries on April the 8th or 9th was conjunct Chiron to the minute. And 2024 has had a very Chiron healing the wounded child kind of energy to it, very powerfully. And whatever this communication is related to the Sagittarius part of the chart, it's as a direct correlation, and it's supporting Jupiter creating an ending of a 12-13 year cycle and starting a 12-13 year cycle in the Gemini part of the chart. Sorry for those claps. So that energy is brewing as well. Mars is getting ready in the first house to trine the North Node in Aries. This is the direction I want to move in. A lot of support, a lot of energy, a lot of power, a lot of let's move forward. But the manifestations could be a little bit different in each of these cases. So something comes up around the time of this full moon that is in alignment with where you want to go. It's very possible. Very possible. Wonderful. Well, that's clear. Something comes up that you're considering taking or agreeing to take because it's going to help you get to where you want to go, even though it's not exactly part of the new set of energies that you are creating or manifesting. Fine. That could be part of this full moon trine Pluto energy. But Mars trining the North Node might be giving you a sense of, hold on a second, where do you really want to go? And do you just want to invest in that? Keep your feet on the ground, folks. If you need to do something to keep a roof over your head and solidify yourself financially, and it will allow you to get to where you want to go by the middle of April to the end of the first week of June. There's nothing wrong with a side hustle if it's going to help you. Even if it feels like, well, this was not meant to be part of my future. You never know when the universe is trying to help. And we have Mercury retrograde coming up anyway, so there's certain things that are going to get clarified during that time anyway. It's just been a fascinating full moon. It's not without, and somewhere then with Mercury involved, there's this question of conversations and communications related to the Sagittarius part of the chart that are not done, that are starting up. And there's also, even though the squares to the Pisces part of the chart from Sagittarius are not encoded into this full moon, there is this awareness in the Sagittarius part of the chart that there's a connection to whatever's going on in the Sagittarius part of the chart as part of Sagittarius season. And Venus and Mercury being in Sagittarius, and the Sun coming into Sagittarius on the 22nd, a week from now, and the new moon in Sagittarius 2 weeks from now. There's a sense of keeping the Pisces part of the chart in mind with these Sagittarian activities and conversations, because Saturn wants you to act responsibly and or stabilize the Pisces part of the chart, which has had its own kind of looseness or Neptunian vagueness, or even outright deception that Saturn is trying to manage and get us to act responsibly around. The conjunction to Algol is a little bit more complicated, and one I prefer not to touch because, number one, I'm not an expert in fixed stars, and number two, I don't know that they're showing up. All I will say is if the universe is protecting you in some kind of situation, don't do anything to mess with that. Don't, just be careful of being too reactive in such a way that it ends up hurting you. Count to 10 if you need to. Hit the pause button a little bit if you need to. Don't be so quick to fire off something, especially if it's possible that it could have, with alcohol, there can be an energy of feeling attacked in the midst. But with that particular fixed star, it also has a reputation of providing protection. It's one of those things where if you look at Medusa directly in the face, you know, it doesn't go well. But if you have her on your side and you're to the side of her so that she's not staring at you, she kind of offers protection. Until I see consistency, reliable consistency with the fixed stars in people's charts as I talk to them, I'm not going to factor them into my interpretation too strongly. There might be other astrologers who are better at that. But I need to see, those of you who've done readings with me know that I am, when I give my interpretations in the first half of the reading without knowing anything what's going on, I am able to do so with a certain amount of confidence, because by now I have seen how transits and planets are consistently about a certain energy. And I continue to remain amazed at the fact that it translates not in a vague way, in a clear way, in each individual chart that I read, but with a clear connection to the interpretation. And until I see that kind of consistency with the fixed stars, I'm not spending a lot of time there. I've already done a video on, because it's very hard for me to not think about the full moon in Taurus in a presidential year without thinking of the presidential candidates. That's why I did that last video on Trump and Harris, because I just want to get that out of the way. All I'm going to say there to finish that up is, remember, the 10th house is a house of visibility, whereas the 12th house is a house of behind the scenes. And it's a full moon. It's not capturing energy forever. As I said, as time goes on, the charts end up going in different directions. And also in Trump's chart, I did talk about the propensity to moving towards partnerships, and several handshakes that are already underway and may have been underway the week before and after July the 17th and September the 17th, with the first of the Pisces eclipses, could be the kind of partnerships that he is seeking to build. Whatever happens, whether he ends up taking office or not taking office, I know there are lots of theories swirling around. And this is not a political channel, but some of the handshake, and however each of us individually may feel about some of these handshakes, whether we think they're cause for celebration or whether we find them nauseating. But the bottom line is this idea of handshakes with people like Elon Musk, for example. Where's the money coming from? 8th house handshakes, right? That's where the North Node eclipses are moving towards. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say here, because I don't want the energy of the full moon video to become enmeshed in individual charts when we're trying to apply them to our charts. If you are more curious about what I just said, you can look at those videos. By the way, okay, I will do an announcement of this. I'll do it tomorrow as well. I actually have received enough requests now related to the $100 readings that I was offering. I'm going to just do this for 25 seconds. Enough requests, but not everybody has paid. So here's what I'm going to do. If you are interested in getting a reading with me, and these are 60 to 75 minute readings, and I've done a separate video on this that I'll post a link to at the end of this video so you can get more information, so I don't waste your time here. If you write to me before the weekend is out, I will go ahead and honor that discount. So it's $100 for a normal, and it's a discount that is certainly substantial for people living in the US and EU and Canada. And that's where I'm going to leave that. Because there's some folks who have written in, and I have enough requests to fill the 15 slots, more than that even at this point in time, but not everyone has paid. So, you know, there are a couple of you I'm in contact with the payment. Don't freak out, please, if I'm in contact with you and you see this and I'm just like, oh my God, I haven't paid. Just remain in touch with me. And this is not an earth-shattering event, and I don't have to become draconian about anything and OCD about, oh, you wrote and you were part of the 15 and you did not. All I'm saying is, at some point, it's time now for me to close this special. And if I hear from you by the end of day Sunday, this gives people in Australia Sunday Pacific time. Let me just be specific. End of day Sunday Pacific time. If I hear from you by the end of your weekend, wherever you are, wherever you are, although this applies more, the discount applies more to people in the EU and the US and Canada, then I will go ahead and honor it. And if I still end up having a slot free by the end of it because enough people don't pay or something, or don't follow through, I'll let you know. But I think by that time we'll be done. All right, let's come back to the full moon. Folks, here's my question. In the past 48 hours, and over the next 24 hours, but especially over the next 48 hours. Has something come to conclusion? Has something come to culmination? Have you received an offer? On the positive side, has there been some sort of completion? Have you had, and it could be a mixture of the two, conversations that feel full moony, bringing up swirls that have been suppressed? If something has come through, does it feel like it resonates more with Pluto and Capricorn, or the Capricorn part of the chart? And it could be something that feels like, I don't think Pluto and Capricorn wants me to do this, but should I do this because it'll help me get to where it is that I want to get to by the middle of April to the end of June? In which case, if you say yes, it will help you, if you keep that end goal in sight. If you say no, you are going to be then pressured to create the alternative that will give you, in terms of resources or whatever it is that you need, that this other resource or this offer that has come into that may be seemingly opposite to where you wanted to go would have given you. So be sure that if you're going to reject something that's going to help you, that you are absolutely clear that you're going to have to do whatever it is that you want to do to compensate for the fact that you might be turning something down that's going to actually help you. But that energy is a little bit in the air, with Venus in Capricorn squaring the North Node, with Mars just having opposed Pluto, and this full moon trining Pluto. We had a new moon in Taurus on May the 7th. So some arc related to that new moon may be coming to, and that new moon was also conjunct Uranus in Taurus. And this full moon is even more conjunct Uranus in Taurus. And the universe moves in mysterious ways. So something related to that full moon that started off with that full moon, May 7th, week before, week after, July 7th, week before, week after, September 15th, week before, week after, November 15th, week before, week after, but a few days, may bring something to culmination related to that. When I say the universe moves in mysterious ways, it could be that when a new moon occurs and something occurs, you think, oh, it's going to be this that's going to culmination. But it could be something else that, it could look different. I know that sounds vague, but I encourage you to, in certain cases, not to get too attached to the outcome until the outcome is here, until you've stabilized and created what you need to create by the middle to end of April to the end of the first week of June, when it comes to the direction that you want to move in the Aries part of the chart. Remain open to what that outcome may look like. You may think that, oh, I really want to go here or be here or do this. I want this type of job. And the universe may say, I brought that to you for a reason, but there may be, it doesn't always have to be an either or. It can be a both and. It can be that something that you've been led to incorporate, it's better for you to understand what leaning into those energies means for you with regard to what you're trying to incorporate, as opposed to be so wedded to an outcome that you almost have to move towards it for egoic reasons and lose sight of the fact that there could be something about that outcome, if you were to take on, that would create havoc in your lives. Trust spirit. But new moon on May 7th, conjunct Uranus, may be reaching some sort of an inflection point around the time of this full moon. Most importantly, culminations, completions, emotional conversations. The conversation side of things, interestingly, the full moon is in Taurus, but the conversation side of things may actually be in the Sagittarius part of the chart, where Mercury is trining Chiron and Mercury is opposing Jupiter. It's a lot of, two of the bodies that are being trined, even though one of them is not a body, are in Aries. Mars trining the North Node in Aries, and Mercury from Sagittarius trining Chiron in Aries. The direction we want to go. There's likely to be a lot of contemplation around, this is where I want to go. Will I go there? Will I get there? Is this thing that has come through, will it take me there? If something has come through that feels very much in alignment, there may be, sometimes with full moons, You have the sun in Scorpio, and it's a Scorpio month, and you have a period of time for 72 hours where you have this flare up in the Taurus part of the chart. It may be that what you need to do to stabilize and bring the Scorpio part of the chart into alignment for now creates a bit of an obstacle for what Pluto is trying to complete and transform for you in the Capricorn part of the chart. And the full moon trining Pluto is saying, and conjuncting Uranus is saying, don't lose sight of that path for you in the Taurus part of the chart, conjuncting Uranus, symbolized by Uranus, that is your path. Doesn't matter what convention says. Your breadcrumbs through that Taurian jungle. So whatever it is that you're doing to stabilize, to bring into alignment as part of your annual transits through the Scorpio part of the chart right now, and whatever you feel you need to do to anchor it, to bring it into alignment, to make changes to it, Spirit is saying, don't lose sight of intuitively, emotionally, intuitively, in terms of visibility, in terms of whatever's coming through, saying, don't lose sight. This is why full moons can be a little unwieldy and a little unsettling. And the days leading to the full moon can be productive, but can also, they can be busy, but not necessarily productive, because they emotionally throw, you do certain things and get certain things done, and then you find that you have to spend a certain amount of time processing what is just going on because there's so much swirl. Let us start to bring this full moon video to a close. Overall, the full moon embodies a lot of constructive energy and opportunity. The full moon in Taurus is conjunct Uranus in Taurus. What is the right path for you in the Taurus part of the chart? Don't lose sight of that. And it is going to be linked to Pluto completing his transformation in the Capricorn part of the chart, which he has been doing since 2008. There could be something in the air that you're considering taking or that has been offered to you that may feel like it will help align the Scorpio part of the chart, but may be a little bit in conflict with this Pluto-Uranus trine, and you may have to weigh, do I take this? Do I not take this? If I take this, will this help me get to where I want to get to? As long as I'm open to where I want to get to as an outcome, because it could very well, by stabilizing the Taurus part of the chart, universe may be saying, you may have thought that the ultimate solution is this, but the ultimate solution may be this for now. And this will help stabilize, and it will actually help you get to where you want to get to. And all the full moon is saying is, don't lose sight of what you're trying to build and what your path is. And don't lose sight of what Pluto has transformed since 2008. And see how you can incorporate, if something has come through as an offer or culmination or completion, how you can incorporate that to move, to make that work for you. To make that work for you. And if for some reason you decide that you're not going to do it or not going to take it, make sure you understand then whatever it is that you're trying to make, you commit to it in such a way that it can compensate for whatever you're rejecting. With Mars getting ready to try the North Node for the first time and then doing so 2 more times, wherever he is trying to bring, you may be feeling a certain amount of firepower, a certain amount of energy to really want to move towards the desired direction in the Aries part of the chart. But you have to recognize that it is not an immediate thing. We're not yet at the middle to the end of April. We're not of next year. We're not yet at the end of the first week of June of next year. There is a process. The other part of the chart that is very alive right now is the Sagittarius part of the chart as well, with Venus having made it through the Sagittarius part of the chart by November the 11th. And now we're very much in communication and processing mode. Things have gotten into a mental realm, a verbal realm, a writing realm. And there's something here that is going to be processed through December. And as we head to this full moon, as we've just had this full moon, the two transits aspects encoded into it are Mercury in Sag, trining Chiron in Aries. We're coming into this conversation in an empowered way. And what is hanging in the balance is whatever comes of these conversations, how is it going to feed into Jupiter ending a 12-13-year cycle and starting a 12-13-year cycle in the Gemini part of the chart? And conversations or thoughts about it may just have started. And by doing this somewhere, you may be very acutely aware that you need to protect yourself in the Pisces part of the chart. If all this Pisces part of the chart, Taurus part of the chart confuses you, this full moon could have brought, honestly, a potential for breakthroughs, a potential for transformation. But the work is not done yet. Sometimes the full moon will bring through that potential and it'll be part of that full moon. There's enough going on with whatever's encoded into this full moon. And with Mercury making aspects and Mars making aspects that they're going to make 2 more times because they're retrograde. Jupiter being retrograde right now. That whatever it is that has peaked as part of this full moon is going to go through its sort of there's a catharsis and a process associated with it that is from the Sagittarius part that some of these energies and conversations are going to be worked out in December, and some of them are going to take to the middle at the end of April. And have the courage, approach these from a collected and a healed place with that trine to Chiron. If you know your chart, you might be surprised by examining and looking at where's the Sagittarius part of the chart, where's the Gemini part of the chart, and what is this Mercury-Jupiter opposition about? What is hanging in the balance? And Jupiter is basically saying, whoever you're having this conversation with, are they part of the old in the Gemini part of the chart, or are they going to survive into the new? And what will that look like? Lovely to have this full moon in many respects. As much turmoil, as much as it might be excavating. It's a question of how are you going to come through to the other side of it, and what will that look like? But we're very much in that energy now. We're very much in this energy of Mercury going retrograde in Sagittarius shortly, Mars getting ready to get retrograde in Leo and then back into Cancer. We're very much in this area of deliberation, stabilizing the new, cleaning up and releasing the old. And all of that is going to become part of this juggling that we're going to be doing. Now, I told you I have no problem actually doing this full moon video for the simple reason that Mars trines the North Node on the 17th. Mercury opposes Jupiter on the 18th. The Sun trines Neptune on the 18th. And on the 19th, Mercury trines Chiron. So all these aspects, the 3 trines and the opposition that are encoded into this full moon, are coming up over the next few days. So that energy is very much in the air. So whatever has come up to a boil, or the disk of the moon has become full, whether it is conversations that have erupted, whether it is completions, whether it's closure, whatever it is that is bringing up. And ultimately, it's a full moon in Taurus. You're being asked to culminate above all in the Taurus part of the chart. What is that path that is hold that vision, hold that vision, hold that vision. Hold the vision of what it is that you're trying to move towards in the Aries part of the chart. You have Mars trining the North Node, Mercury trining Chiron. They're going to do these trines 2 more times. We're not done. It's just starting. The process is just starting to get rolling. And if something comes up that you can use to incorporate to help you get to, get to the middle to the end of April, to the end of the first week of June, 6 of Swords style. Do we remember the 6 of Swords, people? If something is going to help you ferry you across, even though it doesn't look like it'll end up being part of the new ones you created. But do not make any assumptions. It might. I'm going to have to do a video on this thing about how things look and not being attached to an outcome, because it's part of, the North Node eclipses are funny. As I've told you, they're kind of a carrot at the end of the stick. They present a certain image to get you to, but then they introduce also in that process something that is disappointing, and they kind of keep the chart moving. The desires keep going. They keep moving you in directions that help you evolve. Separate topic. Do not lose sight of the right path for you in the Taurus part of the chart. Do not lose sight. Hold that vision. And different things may come up that you can incorporate. And even hold the vision of what these conversations are bringing up for you in the Sagittarius part of the chart and how you're going to navigate December. You may need to take some actions to create a new reality for yourself that sets some boundaries and makes you take the Pisces part of your chart seriously while you're having these conversations, to see if you can construct a new reality in the Sagittarius part of the chart that helps you determine how these conversations are going to contribute to Jupiter ending a 12-13-year cycle and starting a 12-13-year cycle in the Gemini part of the chart, and how these conversations can construct and build something new and beautiful in the Sagittarius part of the chart, while also setting some boundaries in the Pisces part of the chart. And you may find that you are ready to take some action around this even in the next few days. I will leave it at this. Sometimes doing an astrology reading and presenting a chart reading is a little bit like reading the vapors. The best that I can do is present the information to you, because it is information in the chart, and let you look at those of you for whom I've made, sort of easy to read versions of the chart. You can start to see if any of this resonates there. But as far as the full moon itself is concerned and the offers are concerned, or the combinations that are coming through, intriguingly, they're not so much, they're not, what they're doing is they're bringing a certain emotional and intuitive visibility to what path is right for me in the Taurus part of the chart, but they're showing up more in the Capricorn part of the chart as something that can be taken, that then helps you get to where it is that you need to get to. It's very intriguing. All right, folks, as I said, if you're interested in getting that $100, 60 to 75, my normal readings, but at a significantly discounted rate, you can write to me by the end of your weekend, end of day Sunday. Email address is in the description box below, and I will honor it. I will work out with the few people who still need to pay and sort of get their slots. We'll figure all that out. But thank you so much for everybody who's participated in that. It was really meant to be. I decided that I would do this on Diwali as a sort of a Thanksgiving, so to speak, for the growth of the channel and all that kind of stuff. And it seems to have worked out. I've met some nice people as a result of that. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and next to the subscribe button, bell icon, hover over that, wiggly bell on top, click on that. You'll be notified whenever I do new videos. Comment on the video, like the video if you feel so inclined, gives it greater circulation on YouTube. Thanks button underneath this video, you can contribute to the channel that way. I feel like I say something else at the end of these videos that I'm not saying right now, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be the same spiel every time. Happy full moon in Taurus, all said and done. Try to not let, with those aspects to Mercury, that Mercury is going to do 2 more times after it does it over the next few days. There can be a certain amount of anxiety that comes into the picture with so much Mercury activation. And with the full moon, intuitive and emotional alarm So just try to manage through that. And the next 7 days after the full moon, and we're after the full moon now, most productive time in any month. It's because the edge is off. The wave has crashed to the floor and now it starts to pull back. And so it's an easier time to actually have the energy to be productive. So lean into that if that applies to you. Okay? I want to do a video tomorrow on Saturn going direct, which it did today. Just a brief video to talk about that. And then I do want to talk, because Venus is going through Capricorn, I recently did these videos on what the annual transits to Scorpio meant and Sagittarius meant. I need to do something on the Capricorn part of the chart because it's very intriguing to see where it goes. Forward movement for another week, folks. Once we get to about November 22nd, 23rd, as we head towards the 26th and Mercury going retrograde, that's gonna take a certain amount of prominence. So try and get things in place and get a few things done, and whatever you need to get done, back up your computers, clean up technology, get pending tasks done that you want to do while Mercury is still moving direct over the next week. Because in Mercury retrograde, you want to leave time to process the reality checks that Mercury is going to get to you. But the next two videos, I want to talk about Saturn going direct, and I want to talk about then, after the fact that Venus is in Capricorn, what are the aspects that these personal planets will make as they go through Capricorn. And there's going to be a significant gap between Venus going through Capricorn and then the Sun following, and the new moon and Mercury following. So we need to look at that timing. It's very intriguing when Venus is that far ahead and she creates these opportunities. And this is what I mean by the offers and the opportunities may have come through in the Capricorn part of the chart that's trining the full moon conjunct Uranus, because Venus is offering something, creating a breakthrough. The question is, by the time the Sun enters this part of the chart on December the 22nd or thereabouts, and Mercury is direct by that time, and we head to the new moon in Capricorn on December the 30th, and then Mercury enters Capricorn, I think it's like second week of January or something like that. That's when more action and focus goes into the Capricorn part of the chart. So it's sort of an intriguing delay. By the time we get to December, that Sagittarius part of the chart is going to be hopping. But we will cover that in future videos. All right, enough. Hold that vision and appreciate any constructive opportunities that this full moon has brought forth, even from a conversation perspective, change, transformation perspective. The status quo could not, that's the other thing that this full moon may have done as we headed towards it. The status quo was just not sustainable. And so we need these kinds of breakthroughs to kind of get us moving forward. But keep an eye on the ultimate prize and see how everything fits into it. And at the Sagittarius part of the chart, if this has led to some conversations that are going to be processed, just don't let the full moon throw you too much. Just take constructive action where you need to, particularly where you're going to need to feel, where you're going to feel the alarm in the Sagittarius part of the chart is to make sure that the Pisces part of the chart is being honored, that you are putting the right boundaries in place and taking the right steps to find the right balance there. Whatever you value in the Sagittarius part of the chart may for some of us feel like it is somehow under threat if we don't take steps to act to our highest potential, whether it's the setting of boundaries or pursuing and structuring certain goals in the Pisces part of the chart. There, I said it. And I'm sorry if it feels like I'm reading the vapors, but it feels right to me as I see the chart. All right, we're done. Thank you, everyone. Take care.